when you are chasing the dream, right? You're trying to hustle, you're trying to get to the finish line. And, we glorify hustling, we
We do.
glorify rushing, we glorify, trying to get more content out there, more projects out there than anyone else. You always try to compete with the other people who are in your industry or in your life. And there's a positive side to that, but then there's also a negative side to that, because when that happens, grinding so hard, and I do this completely, but I'm getting way better about it. Honestly,
Yeah.
because of this podcast, I've gotten so much better about it. But grinding yourself into the ground to where you're just complete and utterly exhausted, and it makes you very vulnerable to feel very weak when you don't cross that finish line and you feel like people are putting out more stuff to you. It is very crazy because you go through life and you go through your own process trying to be the best version of you can be, but if you don't meet your own expectations, which are set because you're mirroring other people's lives or other people's career, you let yourself down, which inevitably burns you out, which inevitably leaves you in a dark room thinking about, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this?
Right.
So it's important not to get yourself there, and it's important to make sure you continue to do the inner work, have conversations with yourself, check in with yourself, because this past 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I've started to get up again early, walking the dog, having that hour and a half to myself,
Yeah.
either listening to a book, My Atomic Habits by James Clear, or just, listening to music and clearing my head. It's a great, valuable time to focus on myself, focus on, making sure I balance everything the way I need to, because that's what happens with people. Not a lot of people check in with themselves, which inevitably leaves themselves in the dirt and in the ground because they grinded themselves to that point.
Yeah, and it's funny because how often are you like, we're in the hustle, right? We're in the grind and we got to get this done. We got to, and there's a creative block, right?
Mm.
You feel like you're hustling and hustling, but you just can't finish that script, or the idea won't come to you, or this editing is not the way you wanted it, right? And you keep running into these walls. And yet, and this happened to me. This is what kind of like, I was burning the candles both ends. I was like, gotta do it, gotta do it, gotta do it, gotta do it, gotta stay on top of it, gotta stay on top of it. And I ran into these problems. And then when I took that break, that forced break, I'm like, okay, I can't, I gotta just step back for a little bit. I gotta just breathe. I gotta like that. I knocked out 5 screenplays. Right, right. So it's important to recognize when you're heading towards that burnout, because the more you grind and hustle, sometimes it prevents you from getting where you want to go instead of helping you go where you want to go. Because if you're mentally exhausted and burnt out, you will run into walls. And so you need that step back. You need that. So how do you identify it, right? How do you know when you're burning out or when you're pretending to be happy but you're really not? Well, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do that, right? Like one that I just shared. Like if you're just not getting anywhere, if you feel like you're putting in the 24/7 grind, if you feel like you're handing out advice here, you're handing out advice there, and everybody's telling you how great you are, but you feel like you're just not getting anywhere, that's a sign. That's a warning that it might be toxic, that your positivity might be false at that point, and you need to look at that, because if everything's great, you should be moving. But if you're not, then maybe that happy attitude, maybe that big smile is not really what it appears to be, right?
Most definitely. And I mean, you brought up Robin Williams. He's the perfect example of someone who continued to grind and create beautiful family movies, and even, dramatically pieces of art in the film industry. And then we inevitably figure out that he's been battling with drug abuse, alcohol
Right.
abuse, his own problems behind the scenes that never let anybody else in to see. So it's very hard to get to that point. For me personally, when I start to realize that I'm getting burnt out, and I'm way better about this, like I said, since starting this podcast, but it's really to the point where, like, I do the bare minimum and then I find myself just doom scrolling on my phone, or
Yeah.
just sitting
Yeah.
there not realizing that, 2 hours have passed and I've just been mindlessly, basically half-assedly doing this one thing, and I'm like, I could have been done with this an hour ago, but I've continued to be just sitting here, not even really focusing, but just going through the motions of getting something done. And when you get to that point, you have to take a step back, and that's when you realize you have to take breaks. And
Yeah.
that's when you step back and even, like I said, go for a walk, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, even 10, 20. Catch some fresh air. I think fresh air is a beautiful piece of medicine that not enough people take advantage of because, yes, we have so many groundbreaking technologies in our household that have been like amazing to this generation and
Yeah.
generations that have come before us to take advantage of it now. But there is something calming, there's something peaceful, there's something beautiful about stepping outside, taking in some nice, beautiful sun rays, vitamin D,
Yeah.
and just taking a walk, smelling the fresh air, hearing the birds, hearing conversations in the neighborhood, observing different things that are just going on in everyday life that aren't necessarily a part of your life. Like, I love people watching. Like, when I get a second to step back and people watch, it really makes me reflect and realize, hey, I am okay. There's a lot of other things happening to a lot of other people, and I don't have their struggles, but they don't have mine. So it's something to see and adapt to and recognize, to put yourself in other people's shoes to realize, okay, my situation is either not that bad or my situation, could be worse. So it's very important to just step outside and look at your atmosphere, the people around you, so that you know you are not in the worst position that you could be in.